We are Lagos Talks 91.3.
Okay, welcome back. This is still the office here on Lagos Talks 91.3. It is now 35 minutes gone past 4 o'clock, and we have our guest with us, Mrs. Olubukola Lanipekun-Lawal, CIPM Head, Human Resources, FSDH Merchant Bank. Now, a quick info about who we are speaking with this evening. She is an HR expert who obtained a BSc in Business Administration from the University of Lagos back in 1997 and a Master's in Business Administration, specialization in management from the same university. And, she is a member, that was in 2002 anyway. She's a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, CIPM. She has participated in several conferences, trainings, and seminars both locally and abroad. She is currently the head of Human Resources at FSDH Merchant Bank Limited, formerly First Securities Discount House in Lagos. Before joining FSDH, she worked at Broll Property Limited as the head of HR, UBA Insurance Limited, and in Human Resource Consulting. She is a generalist human resources professional with over 2 decades of experience. Her human resource exposure cuts across industries such as the financial services industry, that is the banking, asset management and insurance, oil and gas, and properties. It's quite a lengthy one, so you can tell the caliber and the quality we are dealing with this evening. Today, we are going to be discussing something that I believe a lot of people, even beyond human resources in organizations, would want to, listen to right now. And the topic today is emotional intelligence for people managers. And that's an interesting scope. So first of all, great bio anyway. First of all, what is emotional intelligence and why is it important in organizations?
Okay, thanks, Kolawole. So emotional intelligence, simply put, is the ability of an individual to, understand and manage his or her own emotions. Okay. And that's, taking away from that speaks to you knowing your feelings, understanding the positive part of your feelings, emotions, reactions to issues that you must sustain, and of course the areas for growth that you must improve upon. And talking about feeling, managing your emotions and knowing your feelings as well also centers on how you react to issues, how you respond to people, your style of communication. And that, of course, communication could be verbal, non-verbal. Verbal meaning the tone of voice. Non-verbal meaning your body language, your facial expression. Even your writing. The way you write actually speaks to communicate, speaks to your audience also. So that's simply put is for you, the individual. So it's the ability for an individual to understand and manage his or her own emotion first and foremost. Because before you begin to talk about managing other people, which is what we're speaking to, people managers, right? Yeah. So as a people manager, before you begin to look at the people that you're surrounded with to ensure that you're able to achieve what you have to do, you must first look inward at yourself, self-aware to know, where do I stand when it comes to emotions? How do I, react? How do I respond? How do I, control myself? How do I check myself? Then after coming to that point or that spot, you can now speak to, recognizing and influencing the emotions of people that you're surrounded with. Now, without you being able to come to that point of determining where you as an individual stand, when it comes to being emotionally intelligent, being able to put yourself in check, knowing when to stop, knowing when to speak, when not to speak, when to react, when not to react. Because, you are confronted by different situations per time.
True.
And it's important that you don't follow, the tempo of the reactions or the issues or situations that you're confronted with. Ability to put a stop when you need to put a stop. So for you to get the best out of the people you're now surrounded with in a workspace, it's important that you deal with self first, understanding what your emotion is, what makes you react, what brings the best or the worst out of you, and you can now leverage that to understand your people, recognize them. So when you're relating with your team members or individuals generally, you are better able to support. You are better able to observe what is happening to them. You are better able to now get them to do what you need them to do. You are better able to understand when they're not doing what you need them to do per time per season.
Okay.
You're better able to also, manage them, counsel where necessary. And it's important because, no man is an island. We all deal with people.
True.
Whether as parents, colleagues at work, in school, wherever you find yourself, you deal with people, and you can't operate in isolation. So you must be emotionally intelligence aware so that, you can collaborate well, interact well, engage, and get the best out of all of this interaction and engagement that you have. So it is very important, not just within the workspace, but everywhere where individuals dwell and cohabit.
Interesting. So I know we had this conversation before we turned on the mics. Let's have a clear, or let's define it clearly. People managers and human resource managers, do they mean the same thing?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
They're different. So human resource managers simply put are the individuals within the workspace that have responsibility over the entire employees within the organization. Now, people managers speak specifically to team leads within different functions in the organization.
Okay.
And it's been often said that people managers or team leads are the first line of HR because they have responsibility, for the limited number of people that are assigned to them within their function. So you're responsible for the well-being, the contribution, the performance of the members of the team that you oversee. So the ability of your team members to deliver on the expectation of the organization from you is so critical.
Yeah.
Peter Drucker, in his book titled The Practice of Management, actually defines management as a multipurpose organ, right, that manages business, manages manager, right? Now manages workers and manage work.
Okay.
So the role of the managers within that context cannot be overemphasized because managers have a lot to do in managing the people to do the work that is required, expected of them, so that ultimately the purpose of the existence of business is achieved, which is a goal set, for that business, and of course business continuity. So it's so important that eyes are taken off human resource, and prior to now, the understanding was everything is dumped, on the desk of the HR function personnel, head of HR, the HR team members. You have responsible for everything that concerns the people, but that's not, the case anymore because team leads, line managers actually have responsibility first and foremost for the team members they have. And they must ensure that they manage and engage with them, to deliver on a set objective for their team ultimately. So that's what it is. So it's not just human resource managers that are people managers.
Okay, so in a case where you have people who are, who are lacking in this aspect, who more or less don't have the know-how, in terms of delivering on this quality that you talked about, emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
How much of an impact will this have in the progress of organizations or that particular organization in question?
A great deal of impact, a great deal. And I'll tell you, I'll just give some examples. I'm sure you're aware about this, the Japa syndrome.
Yeah.
And you're also aware of serving of breakfast, as the experience of it. So it has a great impact, and that's why it's important that every individual takes responsibility for his or her own emotional intelligence.
Okay.
So, by the time you're self-aware of areas for growth, areas to sustain, then the individual must look for ways to improve in the areas for growth. And I'll tell you how easy it is if an individual can come to that terms, because the point is, nobody needs to deceive you. You will know at some point in time whether you're emotionally intelligent or you're not, or whether you have areas for improvement, because people keep speaking to you. Those that care about you will tell you, straight up that, you know what, you need to improve. You are not doing very well in this particular area. And then some individuals that are sincere to themselves, we actually seek to know whether they are emotionally intelligent by speaking to colleagues or asking even from the team members, you know, what they've observed and what they think about their style of leadership. Now, I used to say that the internet is a free shop where you can shop, you can buy free without having to pay anything. So first off, an individual that is looking for ways to improve and be better, right, in this regard, should look for materials, and they're readily available. Can identify a mentor to speak to in this regard, right? Should also, we have some tools. We have Beckman assessment tools, personality assessment tools that we can actually use to determine the level of emotional intelligence that you have, and your type of personality and what you need to improve upon, so that will also help, right? And I believe that in partnership with the organization, for those, you know, that are, for people managers and organizations, can partner with the organization to actually support that growth and development in the areas that have been identified through identified learning programs, training programs, and there's so many of them, you know, that an individual could take.
So if someone isn't born with that skill, because arguments are flying around that sometimes these things are innate. People are born with them. People are just naturally emotionally intelligent. In the case where someone is lacking, like I mentioned earlier on, is this something you can learn? Could you go to some sort of institution to go from zero to hero in terms of your level of emotional intelligence?
Absolutely, yes. You can learn. You can learn the skill, you can improve. I mean, I think it was Daniel Goldman that was speaking to characteristics of emotional intelligence, and he mentioned the need for self-awareness, self-regulation. So, knowing that, the first point of call is actually being aware that I need to improve. And that's one truth that a lot of people find hard to accept. But when you get to the point of actually accepting that I need to improve, right? You're in an organization, and because of you, you know, your organization is losing employees. It becomes a source of concern for the organization to, you know, find out, okay, so what do we do to support this individual? Because you can be great in the work you do, but you're not a great people manager. Now, the point is, like I said before, you can be great, but you can't do all the work on your own. You need support. You need extra hands to actually get the work done.
That's true.
So, yes, you can. There are trainings, there are learnings you can do. I mean, you can also use the John Maxwell DISC program to also identify specifics. So, and I know the organization a lot of organizations now are looking at the 360 degrees approach to behavioral assessment.
What does that mean?
So 360 degrees approach to behavioral assessment simply speaks to, you know, each individual's behavior being assessed by not just the line manager like it used to be. That's management by objective, just from manager to the employee. But now it cuts across the line manager, the employee herself or himself, you know, assessing, you know, on a scale of identify parameters. What have I feared on the scale, right? So the line manager is also assessing that employee. The team members that work with the employee is also the manager are also assessing. So how does my manager feel in relating with me, and of course peers? So Kolawole is my colleague at work, right? Kolawole, in my interaction with you, from my department to your department, how has it been? How has the engagement been?
Okay.
How do I talk to you? How do I respond to you? How do I react when you raise issues with me? You know, you give me that feedback. That, in a way, will help me understand that there are specific areas for improvement. And wherever the score is low, you definitely know that there's need for growth there. So, specific training, you know, learning programs will now be identified for that individual. But what I speak to, first off, is, you know, the primary responsibility is with the individual. So, personal development is also important. While your organization is also investing in you, also invest yourself and look out for how you can grow in the identified areas. And you can do online programs that are not that are free. Like I said, the internet is a cheap shop that everybody can buy from.
Indeed.
You know?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, it is 4:50. You're listening to The Office here on Lagos Talks 91.3. We get to have conversations with HR experts, and we get to also brush up our skills and widen our scope in terms of our knowledge of how the business within the workspace is. So we've been talking about emotional intelligence amongst people or for people managers, and we've asked a few questions. And by the way, in case you're just joining us, we're speaking with Mrs. Olubukola Lanikbekunlawal, a CIPM, and she's the head human resources at FSDH Merchant Bank Limited. Okay, so we've been speaking.
Why that Mrs. is coming? Bukola Lanikbekunla will just been.
Okay, all right, no problem. I get that. Okay, so what do you think an employee should do in a case where he's boxed to a corner and then he's having to deal with a boss who is emotionally unintelligent, so to speak? How does an employee cope with that?
Okay, so I mean that is not it's not something that is impossible. I mean, we see it happens. We see it in the workspace. So what the employee should do first off is it is the responsibility of the employee to manage the line manager. However, if the line manager is one that is approachable, the employee could look for a good time to engage with the line manager, and rather than attacking the person of the line manager, the employee should actually speak to specific issues and observation, and now bringing those issues or experiences to the fore, so that because at times you're reacting, you're not even seeing yourself, right? You're not even hearing yourself, yet you said a lot of things that should not be spoken or should not be said. So the employee should allow the manager to vent and do everything that react and all of that, but now because the truth is we're within the workspace to add value to one another and bring the best out of each other. So it's a two-way approach, right? The line manager manages. I mean, there's something we're doing in the organization. We manage downwards, we also manage upwards. So it's a two-way approach, yeah. So, and this is what we're speaking to. So the employee can engage with the manager and point out specific areas of observation without being disrespectful, right? Yeah. The employee can either also look out for the manager's colleague within the organization that the manager has very good relationship with and try to engage, to just let the colleague know that these are observation and is known to the team members, because ultimately it's going to impact the organization if something is not done. Or the employee should just approach HR and just let the HR manager know what is happening.
I mean, that seems to be a problem, because a lot of organizations right now run a structure in which there's little or no HR presence within the value chain.
So if there's no HR presence, at least the manager has a boss, has a senior colleague, he or she reports to you. So the employee can engage.
So what if it's a case, because I've seen a lot of cases. A lot of people have spoken to me about issues and, you work on the radio, talk about this on radio, blah, blah, blah. So I get to hear a lot of things that happen within organizations. In the case where you're running a sole proprietorship where, you're working within a system that the CEO is micromanaging pretty much. He's so involved in every situation within the system, and he has no boss that can maybe come in to check his excesses. In that sort of case, how do you deal as an employee?
So the truth is, we know that organizations that are built for the future now are looking for how they will be known as great places to work. Now, in such instance, the scenario you've painted, I mean, what the employee can do owes the organizations to give that feedback, right? And like we're talking about Jackpot syndrome and all that. I mean, looking at the different generations that we have within the workspace now, you have the Gen Zs, you have the millennials, you have the Generation X or Zennials as they're called, and the baby boomers. Now, you cannot use a one-size-fits-all approach, right, to manage the different generations that you have within your team. You must first try to understand the different generations, and also now relate with each generation that you have within your team differently, as is expected. So that ultimately, the Gen Zs and the millennials, they're not tolerant. They can't take some of the things that the baby boomers took way back. I mean, they look at you and they tell yourself, I can't take this, they're gone. But we need them. Because for the next generation of work, it's the Gen Zs and the millennials that are going to continue.
Place,
So you must keep them within the environment. Otherwise, the organization is just going to die after some time if we don't have, people to hand the business over to. And that's why it's so critical that if that happens where, the owner of the business is one that micromanages, he doesn't want to listen, the employee owes that business owner, that duty of care to make known that feedback, right? And if it's still not going to be taken, if possible, have it, look for one or two people of like minds to engage with that business owner. And if nothing happens, because the truth is, every individual, right, going out of his or her house every morning to say, I'm going to work, is looking forward to working in a space where you have this peace of mind, there's joy, you enjoy what you're doing, and you're able to give your best. Now, when it gets to that point that every time you're going, you can't say that that feeling, that positive feeling is there, that positive vibe is there for you, then it's tantamount to saying that it's time to quit.
Interesting. And that's one thing that is quite common amongst the Gen Z. They don't have time to waste time in quote there. Yeah. We're going to go on a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to ask you a few questions about culture and how this affects all of this.
Okay.
You're listening to The Office here on Lagos Talks 91.3.
News, information, and laughs. It's Live Drive.
The Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, CIPM, will promote excellence and regulate the ecosystem for people management to deliver value for sustainable growth of individual organizations and nations. As the apex regulatory body for the practice of human resource management in Nigeria, we ensure continuous development and maintenance of professional competence of our over 12,000 members across the public and private sectors of the Nigerian economy. We help you drive through human resource challenges in the workplace by providing tools, resources, and solutions that align with best practices. Become a professional and develop your competencies as a professional. Join us today. Visit www.cipmnigeria.org to get started. We deliver value through people.
Excellence from the center of excellence. This is Lagos Talks 91.3.
Okay, welcome back. You're listening to The Office on the live drive here on Lagos Talks 91.3. My name is Kolawole, and we have been having a conversation with Olubukola Lanikbekun-Lawal, a CIPM. Okay, so before we went on that break, I wanted to ask you the level of connection. When you talk about some emotional intelligence on people managers, what does the family background have to do, or what role does that play? The educational background, or perhaps social factors here and there. What do these things have to play, and how much of an impact will these things, play in terms of how a manager within a system disseminates or, does his job, basically?
Okay. Earlier on when you were talking about, what does emotional intelligence mean? I mentioned that it's the ability of the people manager to recognize and influence. Now, the recognition is in the sense of being observant enough to know. You closed from work last night, and the employee was full of life, was bubbling, and by the time it's coming the following morning, it's all faces squeezed up, so all tight, and you just ignore it. You're not bothered, right? And I think that shouldn't happen, right? Because an employee that is not emotionally stable can't deliver, can't do much. So social factors like family lifestyle, education background plays a significant role, right, in emotional intelligence status of an employee. Because an employee that maybe family background, maybe
they were abused a lot
while they were young, or while they're growing up, or is all shouting down, not allowing them to speak. Their self-esteem has been traumatized badly. Of course, they just take it. And when they come to workspace, that's what they've known. So they don't know it to be wrong. Is what they grew up with, is what they've been exposed to. They're going to dish out the same thing, unless they are corrected or their attention is called to it and they
All
become
right.
self-aware of it. So being self-aware at times does not necessarily have to come from the individual. It may actually be from the observer on the outside to say, okay, what's going on? You know, I've seen you behave in this particular way. Is anything wrong? What's the matter? You know, so that's why as people managers, the work that you do within the workspace, your role actually as a people manager, you know, exceeds the workspace. It actually goes beyond in the work environment.
All right, thank you. Our time will not permit us. We could go on and on. It's already 5, but thank you, Olubukola Lanikbekun Lawal, CIPM, for stopping by to educate us. It was quite something. I wish we could go on. I'm hoping we can have you at some other time. So we can, you know, continue with this. Maybe like a part 2 to this conversation.
That would be great. I'll be here. And
All
like
right.
you always say, this is your girl.
She said she was going to do this. She said she was going to do this, and she did it.
Signing out.
Thank you for stopping
Thanks,
by.
Oli, for having me.
Yes.
And thanks to Prince Will as well.
All right, Princeville is the guy at the background helping us with the digitals. You're listening to Lagos Talks 91.3, 5 p.m. on the live drive, and that's it for today's edition of The Office. It happens on Thursdays from 4:30 p.m. up until 5 p.m. And my name is Kola Wale, and in just a bit we're going to be having Critical Thinking with Zeal.
We are Lagos Talks 91.3.